And y'all, I'm so excited for our conversation tonight. You know, before I join any of these shows and go live when we have guests, the very first thing that we discuss before we actually come live and on air with you is just talking about what's on our mind right here, right now. And I asked Bennett Lebowitz this question, and he brought this up: how to live on purpose and how to live with intention. And there is probably no more important conversation that is both timely and relevant to you and me right here, right now, than this conversation of living our lives with intention and living on purpose. And so I am so excited to be joined by Bennett. He's the president of Panda Consulting, and really coming alongside Bennett, what you do with business owners is really staggering. And so I'm so grateful that you're here with us tonight to, yes, talk about the business side. You know, you're a third generation small business owner yourself, but how you're guiding entrepreneurs through pivotal moments in their business, but also in their personal lives, because we live integrated. We don't live disparate, you know, where it's here I am on the business side and here I am on the personal side. So, you know, this conversation of how to live on purpose, it's what you're doing and how you're living internally, but also how you're shaping people to exist in their businesses so that they're being able to be exit ready and really able to get to the next season of their life. And so that sense of intentionality is something that is warranted in both regards. So it's like if we've mastered it in one area, usually we'll be able to kind of translate it over into the other. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invite. I've enjoyed our conversations and really excited to be on air tonight.
Yeah, me too. For those joining, Wayne, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here live with us, Wayne. We're going to be talking about, you know, this conversation of living with intention, and I just really invite you all to put questions and comments here in the chat for Bennett. But Bennett, before we dive in, I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey of how you even got here in the first place. You know, you've had a very interesting road. So I would love for people to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Some of my earliest memories are hanging out with my dad at his jewelry store that we had. And, you know, it was interesting because I was talking to my brother about it. Watching him interact with his customers was really awe-inspiring because he was creating these memories. And it's a jewelry store, so people were coming in, you know, buying things for anniversaries, weddings, birthdays, things like that, big life events. But seeing how he made those moments incredibly special and unique for them made me realize that owning a business is way more than just a way to earn an income. It's creating value, it's creating memories, experiences. And so that always kind of stuck with me. And I think it was just kind of a natural journey to find a way to work in the business world as an entrepreneur. All my brothers are entrepreneurs. And I kind of found what I do now by happenstance. I mean, I was a chef for 17 years and classically trained in that, and then became a wealth manager. And through that, started doing business fee-based planning and then helping businesses exit. And it led to Pando. And so, you know, really, it was a unconventional path, but that's life, right? You know, it's not linear. And so I have always, you can kind of see the black sheep behind me. That's something I've always embraced. I don't go with the wave of people. I kind of go against the grain. And so it was something that, you know, when I got into this world, I really wanted to help business owners navigate a path to a successful exit. I think it's more of an afterthought when a business owner wants to sell. Roughly 40 to 45% of businesses actually sell out of distress. And so they don't really get to carry out that narrative for themselves. It's kind of dictated to them.
Wow.
And so Pando is there to help facilitate that. You know, understanding what's working well in the business, understanding what's not working well in the business, and really looking at it through the lens of a buyer. And it's a very different perspective. And so, you know, there's a lot that goes into that. The business is the legacy, but it's a pathway to creating that personal legacy. And so you have to kind of understand that business owner's identity is very closely tied to the business itself. And so when that business goes away, it's almost like an amputation.
Yeah.
And so learning that and seeing that we have really tried to focus on the purpose of the why. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the exit accomplish for you? What is the ideal situation in terms of your customers being intact, your employees being intact, keeping the community in place where it fostered that growth for you in your business? I think
Mhm.
that's really, really important. I think it's something that you don't realize the impact until it's gone. That favorite lunch spot that you went to go have lunch every week, or, the hardware store that you shopped at for 20 years when it shut down. All these things are just kind of holes in the community that if we don't do something to protect, the world's going to look very different for us and our kids.
Right, right. There's a couple of things that you, as you were talking, I just had this thought that I want to run past you, Bennett, because I know a little bit on what has happened with the family business over the last couple of years. But the picture behind you, the black sheep, I just had this thought, you're talking about just a desire that you've had since childhood to create moments and create memories with customers. Like, it's actually very relational, and it's almost like, okay, I want to do that, and then what's the vehicle to execute on that?
Right.
And I just, as you were talking and then you brought up the black sheep, it made me remember this moment in my life where I realized that if I wanted to really have a strong brand, and I really wanted to have kind of standout moments, creating experiences, creating something that's truly unique, you have to be willing to be the black sheep. Doesn't mean you will be, but something different. In
Yeah.
order to even do that in the first place, you have to be willing to not go with the crowd, and you have to be willing to think outside the box. It's like, here's the box of how everyone's existing. This is the box of community. This is the box of connection. This will surely procure you perhaps the fitting in that we all want, the belonging.
Right.
But we want to originate anything new and truly create, the essence of creation. We have to actually get away from that and be willing to perhaps even experience the ostracization that might come with that creation. But I just had never kind of put those two and two together, and I'm curious your thoughts in that comparison.
Well, I mean, think about it. There's really two types of people: those who are entrepreneurs and those who are employees. And entrepreneurs make horrible employees. I've always told people that I am the worst employee you could imagine. I don't conform, right? I'm always pushing against the grain. And so,
Mm,
I think there's a natural place for business owners that they've
mm,
always kind of been the disruptor, right? They can always go back and look at what I like to call lighthouse moments in their life where it
mm,
really formed them to become that ability to be risk adverse
mm.
or risk, I would say risk sensitive in the sense that they're willing to put in the hard work and take on a lot of risks that nobody else would be willing to do. It's hard out there, right? It's hard to grow a business. It's hard to start a business. You're constantly trying to find a foot in the door in your market, in your industry. And usually you got to disrupt to be able to do that. And so I think there's a natural tendency for business owners to have always gone against the grain. It's what makes them successful. It allows them to have a different perspective, to be a visionary, right?
Mm,
And to see something that everybody else is looking past.
mm. And I just want to double click on that, because honestly, Bennett, there's a real desire for every single one of us to experience connection, and even your why, your desire to go create moments and memories for people actually is relational. And it's like, but the how to needs to actually, it's like going out of the ordinary path to move down to then kind of come back and experience the connection with people. So there is something in the disruption. Maybe we don't, and just kind of visualize with me, if you would, like a crowd of people on a lane, on a road. And then the entrepreneur kind of gets off the road, goes along the footpath, kind of, really doing its own thing, and then comes back in with a product offering or service that makes
Yes.
everybody's life way easier. So you can either kind of go that route in the isolation of the footpath, or you can try to do it in the crowd that really is disruptive and like kind of causing sparks and flames, and it's a little crazy and maybe a little chaotic, but maybe you still get to the same destination. So
Yeah.
really, like the isolation journey of the entrepreneur who really is like, let me kind of be that black sheep and be quiet. And yeah, I think the black sheep can be the disruptor, absolutely, but it's just like two different modalities to get to the same end.
Well, I mean, you think about Steve Jobs, Jeff
Mm,
Bezos, Elon Musk. These are not conventional thinkers. These are
yeah.
people who have pushed the envelope on pretty much everything that they've done, and people have called them crazy for the thoughts that they have, but they are disrupting the way society lives. I mean, we don't even think about going to stores anymore because you can pick up your phone and order whatever you want and it shows up the next day. That was the brainchild of somebody who saw an opportunity, who had a different perspective on how things were done. You were going up against Walmarts and Kmarts and, all these crazy like retail stores that were just, they were the norm when I was growing up.
Mm,
You did. And now you don't even have to leave your house. And I look at our kids and they are growing up in a very different world. And it's because someone was willing to push the envelope a little bit to see, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try it. Right.
mm,
Let's see what happens. Steve Jobs failed miserably at Apple initially.
yeah.
He left, came back in, and it became one of the most profitable businesses in the world. That's crazy. That only a certain mindset can accomplish that.
Mm. What you're saying is actually reminding me of a quote by Henry Ford. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Right.
No,
Yep.
it's it's so fascinating. And then the question becomes, you already mentioned this a little bit of like really having a strong why. Because if
Yep.
we can see the end goal and really be clear on our target and what it is, either that we're trying to create or the transformation, the good that we're making, like I know that it's really going to make this kind of impact. That can be a powering agent. And also, man, just because it's so much risk, not just in the financial side, but on the relational side. Like, what am I going to lose along the way of being willing to do this? This is why I'm seeing here in the chat, a lot of people are liking the black sheep behind you. And I think that a lot of people resonate with that, kind of experiencing the loneliness of the journey, whether it's entrepreneurial or not, the
Well,
loneliness
why
of,
would you do it, right? I mean, you can go home at night, a paycheck's coming. You know it's gonna be there and have security around that paycheck. You don't have to take the stress home. I mean, there's so much cleaner ways of living than being a business owner. In the relationship, the family, my wife, the kids, I'm working right now, right? And, these are things that are just part of it. And I think everybody out there who's an entrepreneur has worked those 16, 17-hour days and then they go to sleep or try to go to sleep and they're carrying the stress of the day and carrying the stress of what's going to happen tomorrow. And
mm,
so it takes a unique type of person to be able to deal with that day in and day out and keep
yeah.
pushing through it. It's a biblical story, and I can't remember the name of it, but he's rolling the boulder up the hill every day, right? And it rolls back down, and he has to roll it back up every day. And
Mm,
that's typically the life of a business owner. You just every morning you start all over, and you just keep rolling the boulder up the hill. And
mm,
tomorrow you're gonna have to do the same thing. And eventually it gets a little bit easier, but
yeah.
there's never that magic moment. We deal with companies that are in 9 figures of revenue, and they're dealing with the same issues that companies that are making $1,000,000, $2,000,000, $3,000,000 are.
Mm,
Cash flow, personnel issues, customer issues,
right.
growth issues, technology issues. They're all the same issues. They're just bigger numbers at the end of the day.
Mm. Yeah, you got to know your why. And
You
I think
have to know
that
your why.
to this point, how to live your life on purpose. It's interesting. C. Martin Love made a comment a little bit ago. He says, align your exit with market cycles and high buyer sentiment rather than waiting for a personal crisis.
Yes.
It's that in business, and it's that concept in every area of our lives. Don't wait until there's a crisis forcing us in. Rather than being reactive, be proactive in creating and designing and pursuing, moving towards a target rather than living in response and living in reaction. So I would love to hear from you, what are some of those almost like qualities of living with intention and planning ahead, and everything you're doing on the business side, but that also translates on the personal side? Because I would imagine that there are similar tenets and qualities.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I mean, I think being deeply rooted into why you do it every day, right? On not only on the personal side, but on the business side. I think the business drives some of the personal whys, but when you're in the trenches and you're dealing with things every day, you got to remember why you're doing it. And it's a bigger purpose than just you and your company. You're at least in our world, we are helping business owners see the freedom of what they've built, maximizing the value of those hard nights, those blood, sweat, and tears. And so to me, I think it's being strategic minded, right? So that you can look at things from a logic standpoint, not an emotional standpoint, because emotions cause you to make really bad decisions in life and in business. Not every one of them, falling in love and having kids and all those are great. You can't apply logic to that, but everything else that you're dealing with in your business, you really need to be able to take a step back and provide a strategic thought process around why you're doing something. It can't just feel good. It can't just be something that you want to do because in the moment it makes sense. You got to look 3 and 5 years out and say, what happens if this doesn't work? It doesn't mean you don't do it, just take calculated risk around it. Right. And so I think, being rooted in why you get up every day, but also having that foresight to where you're not looking in the rearview mirror constantly. I have a gratitude that I say every morning. Yesterday is dead. Tomorrow is yet to be born. Today is the only day. And you have to be able to look at your business in that way. You can't worry about what happened yesterday. You can worry about what's happening tomorrow, but you need to do it in a way that allows today be that catalyst to get you to tomorrow, right? That push that allows you to get traction on your goals and your accomplishments and what you're trying to achieve. You can't just wake up one day and expect you to be exactly where you want to be without doing something intentional, right? And you were talking about how you want to be able to control that narrative, but human nature is to be reactive. It's hard to do something every single day and be proactive around it. It's a constant, it doesn't ever stop. So for somebody like getting us involved in their business that's looking to sell 3 to 5 years out, and they're thinking about it now and willing to spend money and time and energy and personnel and all these things that it takes to get ready, that's a different type of person. That's a different type of mindset. Most business owners are dealing with the fires that are going on today and not worrying about where they can really position their company in 2 or 3 years simply by being proactive.
So to your point, Christopher Adams put here in the chat, he said, the man who plants a seed knows that he won't be present to see the tree that grows from it or experience its shade. Sometimes we won't know the fruit of our labor. It comes with acceptance of risk. And it reminds me of what you're saying in terms of like doing the next right thing, even if you're not entirely certain as to what the outcome is, but you've got a vision though. You may not see the rewards for a bit. And the way that you said this, Bennett, again, I just kind of had this moment that I've never thought of it in this way, but like planning for tomorrow predicated in what can I do today? It's like I'm planning ahead for the purpose of the present
Right.
to use now well, rather than, because so often when we're thinking about the future, it's removing us from the now. But I've never thought of it in this way of how can we actually think and plan for the future that propels us deeper into the now. And it allows for me and helps me actually live more fully and experientially here. You're talking about the thing that really lit you up about business in the first place was creating experiences and memories for clients. And so that's here. It's so fun. I'm geeking out a little bit, and I probably am not the most eloquent because I'm kind of brainstorming in this moment. So it's creating a moment here that will become a memory for the past.
Yes.
Planning for the future to inform how I live today. I love this.
Well, I mean, you can't have a heart attack and then wish that you would have had better exercise
Yeah,
and diet and all these things
I know.
years, in the past to get you to a point where you didn't have that heart attack. We are
Yeah.
so reactive in life. We're reactive in every stage of it. And so, we quickly identify whether or not a business owner is going to actually do the work it's going to take to get them through that exit. And if they are not that type of person or type of owner, then we will save them the time and money
Mm,
of really realizing what we already knew, which was you're not going to implement what we're telling you to implement. You're going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time and end up right where you are today. And
mm,
that's not who we're trying to help. We're trying to help those that really want the help. They want to be able to control that narrative. They want to maximize their effort that they built, and
mm.
it's their baby, right? So instead of leaving it to chance, they want to control that outcome.
Yeah, so good. The being proactive is huge. And you mentioned earlier gratitude. Gratitude for me has been one of the most grounding things that like almost it's almost like digging my heels into the present moment of like this is where I am right now. C. Martin Love says gratitude is a powerful practice that can shift your perspective from what is lacking to the abundance already present in your life. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about your practice because you brought it up in kind of in the green room before we went live, and you mentioned it here, but I'd love for you to kind of lean into that because gratitude really is the antidote to so many, so many like ailments on an emotional level.
Yeah. So I start every morning, I do a little bit of meditation, and then I say my gratefuls, right, every morning. And they're, pretty much the same, but every day something new comes up that I just need to be grateful to remind myself that whatever I'm stressed out about is not really that big of a deal. It keeps me present, keeps me in the moment. It doesn't allow me to get too far off of where I need to be to do the things that I'm tasked with day in and day out, right? So for me, my gratefuls are things that are strengths and weaknesses, right? Things that I'm working on, things that when I don't want to work out that day, that I'm grateful that I get to work out that day, that it's not something I have to do, it's something I want to do, it's something I get to do. And that, even when I'm faced with a challenge, whether it's a confrontation or something like that, to be grateful for perspective and empathy, to see it from a different vantage point and understand that through that lens, I can have a different perspective that allows me to find a better solution instead of reacting emotionally, right? And being able to be defensive and going into it in a situation where probably 3 to 5 years ago, it would have been a very different situation, right? This is something that came out of necessity for me, not necessarily anything. I just wasn't happy with who I was in the moment, right? I wasn't happy at work. I wasn't happy in really the relationships that I had with my clients. I just wasn't happy overall, and I was like, "What am I complaining about?" I'm like one of the luckiest people in the world, and I just was never grateful for it. So I needed to create some kind of consistent practice that allowed me to anchor to that present moment and not get too far away from it. And just being satisfied in the little things.
Yeah.
We're always looking for that pleasure,
Mm,
right? You buy a new car, you open the door for the first time, you get into it, that new car smell, you turn on the engine. Like you can
mm,
never repeat that initial experience, yet we're always chasing that. And instead, it's just being satisfied in the moments of just peace and calm, right? Things that are not too crazy, not too high, not too low. It's just a good day. Sunny outside, the radio's turned up, windows down, and you're just in that
yeah.
moment. And that's a great day. And that's a great moment. Nothing exceptional happening. It's just a good moment. And those are the things that I think we overlook. And that's really, to me, the purpose in life is just finding those quiet moments.
Mm. How do you shape how do you shape your inner world to allow for peace? Because this stimulation of the phone and the inputs, and just like how do you train your body to be able to come to a place of even being able to settle down enough to be able to experience that?
Well, I have ADD, so that doesn't help. And so I am constantly getting distracted. And so, yeah, I mean, I think once again, intentionality, meditation for me has been very, very helpful just to kind of pull myself back into that moment and reset. If I feel like I'm getting um, too unorganized in my thoughts, too distracted, I'll just take a quick, 10-second breather, just focus on my breathing, reset, and come back into it. So, and I also don't do anything for more than probably 20 minutes, right?
Mhm.
I know that's kind of my window of opportunity. I'll focus on it for 20 minutes and then I'll go and do something else and give myself that little break, that mental break, and then come back and I'll do it again.
So good. I love that it's the 20-minute rule, because a lot of times, like a girl, one of my employees, she actually cannot be interrupted for more than 30 minutes in order for her to really accomplish something. So it's like, what works for you?
Yeah.
Knowing yourself well enough to be like, oh, I'm in this window of time is my optimum, and let me create those containers of time throughout the day. So like
Yeah.
effectively organizing your life in 20-minute increments for optimal productivity.
Yeah, I have an attorney friend. She's like, "Yeah, I'm just really trying to get to 90 minutes." And I was like,
Mm.
"My God, that's never happening. It's not ever happening." So I know that about myself, right? I know that this is what works for me, and I think everybody else needs to try to figure out what works for them. Maybe you don't have the ability to break it out into 20-minute segments like that, but there's a solution. You just got to try things constantly that work for you. And, some people like meditation, some people don't like meditation. Meditation for me, when I first started, was incredibly difficult because my mind would wander, and that was kind of that ADD. I would start thinking about things. But that was the practice, right? Is to bring it back into the breathing, and the
Yeah.
distraction is really what allows you to create that focus. It's a very weird kind of oxymoron, but it
Mhm.
works.
So good. Wayne says meditation saved my life. Wow.
It's real.
It really is. And I was talking with a woman just today, and she was talking about visualization, which is something that I've heard a little bit about, but I haven't really invested too much into. But we're doing this morning show every day where we read a lesson from A Course in Miracles, and it's really been solidifying the point of everything that we experience externally is effectively it's almost like it's like a stream of consciousness from thought into what we're experiencing. So much of what we see is predicated in our thoughts. We really are creators in so many ways. um,
Yep.
so I think that there's a lot more for me to learn in that regard. But it's interesting. Even just this morning, we were talking about effectively, we can change our state of mind and thus change what we experience in the world around us. It's like C. Martin Love said, if you start being thankful, you're going to find a lot more to be thankful about. If you're going
Yes.
to start being complaining, you're going to find a lot to complain about. It's just like, what path are you going to go down? And you'll find what's there. You'll find what you're looking for at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all know somebody who's just like, God, the worst things happen to them. They always find themselves in the worst situations. And a lot of that is because of their thought process. They've trained themselves to always look at life in that way. And so they constantly find themselves in those situations. We also know people that are like, everything seems to work out for them, right? And you're just like, God, this has got to be the luckiest person alive. But it's also, if you think about it and you talk to them, you realize that their thought process is always leading them towards those successes. And
Mm,
so, yeah, there's a lot of noise out there right now. And there's a lot of people and a lot of things trying to bring you down. And so you need to surround yourself with people who are, going to lift you up and provide value to you, and get rid of what I call the dehydrators that are going to suck you dry, right? They're just, it, they can't take enough from you. And so if everybody has those people in their lives, and usually they're the closest ones to you that are those dehydrators, but you
mm.
have to protect your emotional health. You have to protect your ability to find that calm in life, right? And if there's people disrupting that, they got to go,
Mm,
and I've had to do that with very close family members, and it's not easy, but at the end of the day, my stress is not there anymore. And a
yeah.
lot of that happened 3 to 5 years ago, So
Mm.
it's not coincidental that all this kind of happened at the same time.
Mm. Chris Held says, I'm terrible at it, so easily distracted in terms of meditation. And I just wanted to call that out because I think that there's even just that thought of like, oh, I'm so bad at this can be a preventer from us even trying.
Yeah.
And also, hi Chris, good to see you. There's something around that man, it's like we've already failed in our own minds. What's the point?
Right.
And so I just want to encourage everyone who's listening, man, it's about kind of that next right step rather than trying to get to the end destination of meditating for 20 minutes and being completely in control of your mind, or 60 minutes or whatever, but like just taking that next right step. Maybe it's just blocking off the time and just putting our phones away and just taking those few minutes. As you were talking, Bennett, it just reminded me, effectively how to live life on purpose, boundaries. You were just talking about that, really having clear, it's like guardrails around you from what saps the life out of you and what sucks you dry. It's really important because if we want to live with intention, and we've got these, somebody called them energy vampires the other day, and it really is so true. Like they're leeching on you and taking the life force out of you in so many ways. So it's boundaries. It's also, so it's like protecting ourselves from certain things and intentionally curating and hooking ourselves up to the things that are life-giving. So it's like detraction and also addition, which is interesting. You need both, and it's not just the elimination, but what am I consciously putting in its place?
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, getting rid of that element in your life is step
Mm,
one, right? But there's things that you have to work on internally to be able to really find that purpose. The first
mm,
step is really getting rid of those people, because you don't even give yourself the opportunity to be able to do that, working on yourself, if you're constantly catering to somebody who is providing zero value in your life.
mm,
And a lot of times, I mean, mother-daughter relationships, father-son relationships, sibling relationships, we all have it, or we know somebody who has that, and it's incredibly difficult to navigate. And I am by no means a psychologist on how to deal with that, but you have to figure out what works for you. You have to figure out, to your point, those boundaries, those guardrails that are going to allow you to protect your sanity, your
yeah,
mental health, your happiness, your purpose, your why, all of those things. And once you do that, there's a beautiful outcome on the other side of it. It's not easy, but if you can persevere through it, you're going to find a whole new purpose in life that you just never even realized.
yeah. So good. I love that. Practical question. Greg asks, do you prefer music doing meditation or not?
Once again, my ADD, no, I need
Okay.
just to focus on my breathing, and that's
Mm.
all I focus on.
And do you listen to instruction, like effectively a coach?
No, because it didn't work for me. I got distracted. I
Okay.
mean,
How did
it's
you learn breathing?
honestly, whoever was talking about, I just can't do, 20
Yeah.
minutes or 10 minutes. I mean, I started out with honestly doing 10 breaths and just, the long inhales, the long exhales, pausing between. I did that 10 times. And then
Mm,
I didn't do minutes. I didn't do seconds. I just focused on the number of breaths that I was trying to get to.
so good.
So that was easy for me to attach to. And then through that, I just kind of moved up, and I only do about 10 minutes. I can't do 20 minutes either, but I don't
Yeah.
need to do 20 minutes, right? That's not what I need. And I do it multiple times throughout the day. If I just need a breather, I'll just go do it. And then maybe it's 5 minutes. I don't put a
So,
time limit on it. It's for me. It's not for anybody else, right? So
yeah.
if it works for
Right.
me, then great. If I'm trying to do, 3 hours of meditation, that's just not, or going to these like silent retreats, that's not going to work for me. So
Yeah.
you got to figure out your own path and understand that there is no right or wrong. It's just, if it provides value to you, keep doing it.
If it provides value. I love that. Speaking of, So DJ put here in the chat, he says, what if what takes the life away from you is actually what you need? Maybe they are taking away the bad energy and you do not realize it. So like those people that officially, or not officially, but we kind of consider to be energy vampires, could it be that maybe there's a secondary, maybe even tertiary purpose than just that kind of initial question of, are you like, are you taking life from me, or am I having to give to you, you know?
Well, I think a lot of times when you talk to an empath, somebody who is exceptionally giving of their heart and soul to
Mm,
others,
mm-hmm.
there are the opposite side of that, right? Those who are going to continue to take and take and take. And so there's a balance, right? You can get rid of that person, but you also have to be able to your point earlier, you have to put that energy into yourself and not other people in that moment for that period of time, right? To figure out where your piece is. And I have some very dear relationships in my
Mm,
life that, quite honestly, they struggle with that, right?
yeah.
And it's with, paternal figures in their life, and it's siblings, and it's these people that are so part of who you are. It's hard to make that break, right? Because they've been there from the very get-go. Feel
Mm-hmm.
like you owe them for whatever reason, yet they don't owe you anything. They take. And they take
Mm-hmm.
your happiness, and they take your sanity, and they take your emotional health, and they take your purpose, and they take, and they're going to keep taking until there's nothing left. And
Yeah.
so I agree with that statement, but I think you have to figure out where that line is.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has it. I had it with my father, right? And so, um, you have to be fully transparent. I haven't talked to my dad in 4 years
Mm-hmm.
and almost 5 years. And it's because that was the situation. And I needed to really take that step for my own well-being, for my own happiness, for my own um, for my kids, for my wife, for my for me, for my brothers. That needed to happen, and it was hard, but I was able to create that boundary, and since then, little by little, it's gotten a lot better, and I found a lot of peace in my life. And he doesn't own that on me anymore, so it's hard. I'm not speaking from not doing. I
Yeah.
understand how difficult it is, but I would say that everybody has a relationship like that in some form or fashion. It doesn't have to be a parent, it could be a friend, it could be a coworker, but
Mm.
somebody has that relationship, and there's
Yeah.
zero boundaries.
Bennett, I'm curious here, this conversation about your dad, it's like that's got to be one of the hardest decisions anyone can make, because the father-son relationship, that's so precious, and there's so much there where there's just a lot of pain when you have to get to that point. And so, at first, the question asked, it's so case by case, like it's not like there's one size fits all answer. And
Sure.
I think that there is something about knowing, when do I, after how long, so considering the duration of time that you've been in this relationship, the effort put in, the resistance met, what are all the qualifiers that I'm going to consider when it comes time to exit a relationship? The duration of effort, the effort itself, their receptivity, our own humility, and also our own awareness and health. There's so many different qualifiers. And to kind of look at it from another perspective, taking another relationship. So there are relationships that you've got to move away from when you're considering all of those effectively almost like KPIs, key performance indicators of a relationship, and so when you're looking at the KPIs and you're like, okay, yeah, we're done, then you look at another relationship. Just because it's hard does not mean that we stop. And I think that that's actually something that in a lot of social media these days, and just in society, there's this whole theme around self-love, and this whole theme around, oh, only do what makes you happy. And at the same time, the moments that have been the worst for me in relationships can at times also yield the greatest fruit in my life. And the fruit might look like I'm in relationship with them still, or I'm not. But those hard moments are actually the very ones so often that we need to lean into, because it's reflecting and showing something back to us for us to learn and grow from. And so that doesn't mean we continue on in that relationship. And it also doesn't mean that we don't. It goes both ways. And I'm just curious if you found, the friction, a healthy friction, and how do you kind of differentiate between the healthy friction and the non-healthy?
Yeah, so I call these lighthouse and foghorn moments, right? So the lighthouse is something, a beacon that draws you closer in and allows you to kind of uh, create a positive kind of habit from that moment. And then the foghorn is this, it's a warning sign. It's a signal to do something different. And the relationship with my dad was years of getting him to try to see what I was looking for in the relationship. And when I realized that it wasn't ever going to be that, that's when I felt okay with it. That was when I felt that I had put as much effort that I wanted to into that, and understanding that it was something that, um, was incredibly impactful in my life. But then I had these two beautiful girls that I was a dad to, that I got to put all that energy into. I got to break that generational issue, right? And so would I go through that 1,000 times again to be the dad that I am now to my girls? Yes,
Wow.
without even a second thought, right?
Yeah.
So yes,
Wow.
I agree with you. There's always two sides to that coin. I gave up something that was incredibly hard to give up, but I received way more because I did that. And I
Mm,
also showed them that there's nobody in your life that you can allow to treat you like that, right?
mm.
And you got to protect your own happiness and your own, you know, um, just your own being, your own purpose of life. And so,
So good.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And ultimately, as a parent, it's always the parent's
Mm,
role to try to make things right, right?
yeah.
No matter how old you are, they're always your kids. And
Mm,
so for the kid to try to make that effort and it not be responded to, and now I can apply that to my kids. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
wow. What a good perspective. I mean, it really, really is. I love the concept of alchemy, turning lead into gold. And
Yes.
that really is what you just described, is so much of that. And to be able to take it on to the next, it is disrupting generational patterns, and hence your black sheep behind you. It is disrupting. That's the moment where you're in the crowd and you do set off the firework that kind of brings the chaos, and you're disrupting the flow so that you can then instill a new pathway generationally down. um, I just think that that's such a good example, because it is generational in so many ways, and it's in us. It's like I have to be so intentional. The moments that I get triggered, God bless, I love my mother so much. The moments that I get triggered by her are so often the very things that I don't want to mirror and model for myself. you
Yep.
know and when I get triggered, so often that's a sign for me of like, oh, I actually need to go take care of myself, and then I'll come back. Like
Yeah.
I actually am probably running on empty right now. So it's like those triggering moments, it reveals so much about our values, about how we want to live, our targets. What does a purposeful life look like and mean for me? And a lot of times when we encounter that friction, it's that there's a real antithesis there that we're experiencing in some way or another.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think iron sharpens iron, right? And I think that you have to have to truly appreciate life. You have to have the extreme highs and extreme lows. Because how do you appreciate the extreme highs if you never experience the extreme lows? You have those that are seemingly privileged and have seemingly everything that you would want in life, yet they're miserable, they're unhappy, they don't have perspective, they don't have those extreme lows to give them that perspective, right? And so I think we can all look back at our childhoods and say there was something difficult that we had to go through that shaped us to who we are today as adults. And if we could go back, would we change that? My answer is no, because it led me to where I am today. And I'm very happy with where I am today. And I know I wouldn't have gotten here if I didn't have those challenges and those experiences, and knowing that I can trust in myself to push through the shit that life throws at you sometimes,
Right.
and
Right.
really through that, because
Mm,
life's hard. And once again, when things are just good, just being happy in that moment, when you're not sick, when you get to work out, when you have a quiet night with your spouse and you're just sitting on the couch watching TV, when you have dinner with your kids, when you just have a normal work day without anything explosive happening, those are great moments. And
yeah.
you can't appreciate those moments until you've had the other side of that, and you
Yeah.
realize, like, I would do anything to get back there. Have you ever had a health issue and just be like, I just want to feel better? I'll take any day as long as I feel better, right?
Mm,
And then when you feel better, you get used to that, and you lose that perspective. And I just
mm,
don't ever want to lose that perspective.
me either. I'm so grateful, Bennett, for everything you've shared tonight. You mentioned something at the very beginning of, when you're helping business owners exit their business and sell, or, whatever the handoff is. You said it's been at times almost like an amputation because their identity is in the business. And so I think so much of this is really, at the end of the day, a good mirror for us to ask ourselves the question of, what is my identity rooted in? Can I enjoy the little moments in life, or am I constantly feeling like I have to do? Can I actually be? Because you know what? Those moments you said are actually moments that are profoundly resonant with just being in the moment and
Right.
not trying to strive and be an achiever and having to provide and perform and people please. It's really just what is on the other side of being able to have our identity rooted in something that with outlasts and is deeper than just our performance.
Yeah. Well, I think, the mirror that we hold ourselves up to is,
Mm,
social media and influencers and these things that, I try to tell my girls, this is not real. They probably did 20 takes for them to get this exact moment on Instagram or TikTok or whatever they're looking at. It's not real. What's real is what you're dealing with in your day to day. What's real is the struggles with friends, and the struggles with your identity, and the struggles with how you feel emotionally and mentally. That's real. Everybody deals with that. I don't care what's on social media. That's not real. It's an image that they are trying to portray, that they so desperately want, but they don't have. So they have to put it out there. And that's what we're comparing ourselves to, and it's just not reality. It's just not. You have to look at what you have in your life, in your day to day, that brings you joy and satisfaction. And that's enough. That's enough. You just being here is enough.
mm.
So being okay with that is okay. And I know we talk about money and material things, and I like nice cars, and we all like that stuff, but that's not the purpose. Those are just niceties.
Bennett, I know that we're kind of wrapping up here. It's really profound, to be able to take that approach to life. And I'm just wondering, if you were to encourage people, hey, here's 2 to 3 things that I do that have helped me. We can only speak from our own experience in so many
Sure.
ways. What would you say?
Hmm. Love hard. Um, find your why, like your deep rooted why. Like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And what brings you joy? And go after that with just fierce passion, and I think if you can do those 3 things, you're gonna be all right. You're gonna be doing a lot better than most. And so that's, for me, I love hard. I love what I do, and, it's what worked for me. So I
Mm,
can't speak for anybody else, but, I think those are probably pretty good things that if you're doing those, you're doing all right in life.
love it. Bennett, thank you. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I love this conversation. I'm excited for our next one and really appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight on The Knowing Show. I will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, for us to go through our daily Course in Miracles. But until then, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow on The Knowing Show.